Hi, Catriona.
Hello, Max.
We finally get to do it after weeks of preparations and kind of excitement building up. Like, it's nice to see your face for the first time. Um,
Yours too,
yeah.
yeah.
We're going to talk about the Rings of Power. We're going to do a little retrospective about what's happening. Yeah, I'm actually dying to hear your thoughts about the series. So I know we've been reviewing this series back to back, but do you actually like what you're doing right now? Do you like watching The Rings of Power?
So I definitely enjoyed the first two episodes, especially that they were just back to back. That's how I like watching my shows. I usually just wait for an entire show to come out and then just watch the whole thing, like binge it. So it has been frustrating for me to have to do it week to week. That's been
Yeah.
annoying, because then I forget things from the last week, and I feel like the pacing's kind of off as well,
Yeah.
because I have this idea in my head of how it's going to feel, and then it feels completely different.
It's
Um,
different every week, right?
it
Speaking
is,
of
yeah.
pacing, it feels like a different show every week we watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I have to kind of like recalibrate how I'm handling it. I'm like, oh, okay, we're taking it in this direction now,
Yeah.
or it's gonna be this slow or this fast.
They're taking their time with everything. I said that in my
Yeah.
last review, but it's like, are we having another council meeting about whether we should sail to Middle Earth or not? It's like, but like, okay,
I
the
know.
good things.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
keep saying this every week, but like Elrond and Durin, why is Durin and Elrond's storyline or like their interactions are the most interesting? Why are they always the peak of the show? At least for me personally, what others are lacking that those two get?
Yeah, I think it's because, well, one, we know them. I mean, we don't know Durin personally. Obviously, we just know stories about him and we know his ancestry and everything. And I mean, I know we know Galadriel as well, but she's being underused right now. And Elrond and Durin, like you, sorry, we'll get to that. But
Yeah, we get to that, but like, yeah, because there's a lot to unpack. And it's like you can't just casually drop something like, yeah, but I'm with you.
I mean, you've said it over and over again that it's like their chemistry is so great, and I totally agree with that. Also, it's just I feel like out of everyone in the show, they're the most true to what is the Lord of the Rings, I suppose, like what
Yeah.
people are looking for in the Lord of the Rings, and they did a good job with that. Durin feels like he feels like like a dwarf we've seen before. What's his face from the Lord of the Rings?
Gimli.
Gimli. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm sorry.
My
I know all
gosh.
the names, but I'm like blanking. Sorry,
Our
fans.
Rings of
But
Power expert.
yeah. Okay, yes. He feels like Gimli a bit, but he's still his own character,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
he's much,
and
and he's also more captivating than all the dwarves combined from The Hobbit, I find.
yeah,
Like
absolutely,
he
absolutely.
feels a lot more dwarvish than
Yeah,
the others did, for sure.
but that's the production's fault on that
Yeah,
whole thing.
yeah,
Like, but
that was big hot mess. But like,
yeah.
I mean, after that, you heard the story. They declined Peter Jackson's participation, even like remote insights into the Rings of Power. Like, I found that very interesting. What about Harfoots? Because I like and hate them. It's a weird
Yeah.
thing.
It's how
What's
I
with
feel.
Harfoots?
I feel like I love the idea of them. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I'm like I love the feeling that they're trying to get with them, or give
yeah,
us with them. It's charming. It's like we said before in the first couple episodes that it feels like an old fairy tale with them.
yeah,
But it's not quite completely there, That's
yeah,
how I feel. How do you like
yeah.
how do you feel about it?
I like their presence, despite what everyone's saying. It's like filler of the Hobbit sort of feeling in the story. And I don't know. I like Nori. I've spoken about this, her crave for adventure and stuff. It's like it's an interesting character to explore. Again, maybe not necessarily within Lord of the Rings realm, but I actually don't mind them. There are some things that I found very touching, very warm. Is it Gandalf? The fact we still don't know, it's episode 5, we still don't know whether it's Gandalf. It's bit frustrating. But yeah, the whole Gandalf involvement and, you know, him helping them to push the wagon, and then whether it's actually him then driving his own wagon in Lord of the Rings. It's like, it's all very, it makes my heart warm for sure.
Mhm.
Speaking of which, I heard an interesting theory the other day that the wheels of the wagons they actually carrying, you know, whilst migrating everywhere, it's actually future doors of hobbit holes.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
really like. I'm gonna link that the video to that Easter egg like below. But like, I
Okay.
thought
Yeah.
that's so compelling. That's actually feels really on the nose.
Yeah. See, that's the thing that I love about what they're doing with the Harfoots is that because it's what, like 4,000 plus years prior to the
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings and everything, just how different their lives are, especially
yeah,
compared to the way every other character is in the show and all the other, you know, humanoid characters. Like the humans
yeah,
feel the same, not much has changed with them. Same with the elves, they're just younger.
yeah,
And less ethereal, obviously. I mean, that's like a stylized choice,
yeah,
but
yeah. I wanted to also talk to you about the tower, because for longest time I thought the tower that we're shown is actually going to be the future Barad-dûr, the Eye of
mhm.
Sauron. That's why he's so
Yeah.
fixated. I did some research, it actually isn't. But then there's the whole thing about Halbrand. There's this theory about Halbrand being the Witch King of Angmar, being the actual Nazgul and stuff.
Okay,
Because you know
yeah.
how he's
Oh,
captivated.
yeah.
There is a lot of those things that, I don't know, I'm so looking forward to all those exposés, I suppose. But at the same time, I feel like we're all sort of making up those theories about what might happen because we want the show to be entertaining. There are actual scholars of Tolkien out there and people that spend their lives trying to deduct and figure out what they do, what he did with this series and with the lore. And right now we're left with two showrunners that haven't done anything before, and everything we're sort of given is based on
true?
those two minds. Yeah, they haven't made this TV series before. I think they have some credits, but like, why the hell would you give something like this to those two is beyond me, and I think everyone's asking themselves the same question. But yeah, it's like we have scholars of Tolkien out there, and then now we're relying on the genius of those two random dudes doing Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I'm nervous. And yeah, let's talk about, like, so what's been happening out there. It's like fans are mad. I mean, we're fans of Lord of the Rings, but of course we have people that read all the books and stuff. But
Yeah, I forgot Gimli's name, so I'm not that big of a fan, clearly.
Yeah, you're gonna be ripped to shreds.
I know.
Do you trust the process? Because I'm nervous. Like, I'm making all those connections. I'm trying so painfully for it to be clever. We talk about the good things. The music is incredible. The first two episodes were great, but like, what now?
I've reached a point, this sounds so terrible, but I think I'm just so jaded from having been disappointed from not just Lord of the Rings stuff, but you know, just so many different shows and franchises that they just went in directions like Game of Thrones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've just reached a point where I'm just kind of trying to go with the flow and let it take its course.
You're sedated.
Yeah.
It's like I'm no longer allergic to bad shows. It's like, it's a guaranteed. Yeah. It's overwritten. It's written into something that's just like, wait, what? I actually need to put subtitles on because I have no idea what you're on about. It's like stories and like conversations that you should be passionate about are written into riddles for
It's how I would write my my high school papers to make it seem like I was, you know, just to fill in the word count.
Yeah.
Just make it bigger and grander, and it makes no sense.
And exactly that. That's it. I think that's what the series is. It's doing more than it should be doing, because I can completely see how they could have spent a lot less money and give you just a good story. Do you think having some A-listers attached to it would be a good thing, something that would help? Because I heard that argument before, that just because we had Kate Blanchett and Sarah Ian McKellen, like all those big names were attached to the project, that instantly made the series better. But my argument against it would be that no, like, you guys had no idea who any of those actors were before Lord of the Rings. Like, no one knew Viggo Mortensen.
Well, okay, so I've said it before. I think, just for me personally, I'm not a big fan of who they chose for Elrond, because I was such a big fan of Hugo Weaving. Not that I expected them to replace or, you know, recast him.
Yeah.
I just think that it didn't feel like they were really trying to get somebody who fit that part. And you know, that doesn't necessarily mean as far as like character, because for 4,000 years you're gonna be a completely different person, you know.
Yeah.
It's just more like just the look overall. It feels like there's something less magical about some of the elves, because I don't know why. I mean, you always know, like, the signature look is the long hair, right? And it kind of gives them this mysterious feeling, and they don't really have that. I do think who they cast for Galadriel is doing a good job.
The beauty of like heroines in the series was like, you know, we had Claire Underwood. I mean, I did the whole freaking dissertation on her. Like, that was sort of the beginnings of the girls taking over kind of thing, the movement, you know, around the Me Too and stuff. But right now it's so late to the game that it's almost impossible for them not to feel pretentious, not to be pretentious by doing something like this with the character. We both agreed casting choice. Moyford Clark is incredible. She's a great actress. I know her from Saint Maud. I keep recommending this. Is one of the best horror films of 2019. Lisa's character, Lisa's actress, right? She's been like this frontier for inequality and sort of, you know, we never have interviews from Galadriel, but we have a lot of interviews from the actress who plays Lisa, whose name I can't remember. Now they're acting like this is some sort of like a stepping stone in it, not even in history of the Middle Earth, but in history of the cinema. Like, it's a lot. Are you buying into that?
Yeah, like, I understand why they're doing it, because it's like, it's a big, huge show. I mean, you said it earlier, it's like they want to give everybody an opportunity to be able to play a part in this new series and everything. But like, again, it's like you're doing it at the expense of kind of breaking the continuity of something that already was, and then you get away with it by saying, well, it's not really Tolkien, you know, like, and to bring that up, like, I think it was on one of the Critical Drinkers videos, somebody had commented and said, like, mentioning specifically like having diverse characters is what happened to other races thousands of years later. Like, did they die out? Like, you know, it kind of makes you think, like, it's very odd.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, right.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously you kind of have to let that go if you're going to be willing to watch the show and enjoy it and connect it to everything else. But it's an odd choice to make, and it is at the expense of playing it safe with everything right now, you know?
Yeah. On top of steering away from the actual flaws of the show. Like, that's another thing. They've created so much controversy before this show actually started. Not only fans, but like, even I was so pessimistic in the first episode. I was just like, okay, give me your best. I actually ended up liking it because my expectations were set so low that I expected the worst, and they deflected this whole conversation about whether the series actually works to focus on this, whether there's the beard on, you know, dwarven ladies and stuff, like all those discussions over, and I'm not saying meaningless stuff, but like just something that should not be the topic of the conversation when you review a film. It's just mundane, and it really created a bunch of toxic so-called Tolkien's scholars out there that it's I don't know who to believe anymore. There's so many Tolkien fans right now out there. Have you noticed? Like, where were they when Lord of the Rings happened? Right now everyone's a Tolkien scholar, and it's like, okay, hang on, like, who do I listen to? Who's actually right in this discussion?
I want to know what you think of, and I've completely forgotten. I don't know anybody's names on the show. It's the
Catriona Boeing, ladies and gentlemen.
I think
a Lord of the Rings expert. Like,
I do know Gimli's name, but I
Okay.
blanked. I panicked. Okay. Arendir? I think that's his name. The elf.
Arendir. Yeah.
Arendir and oh my God, what's the kid's name? I know the kid's name.
Theo.
Theo. Yes.
Do you know how I know this? Because this is the least Tolkien name that there is, essentially, that they made it up. Obviously, someone like Theo did not exist, and yeah,
name
I
did
remember
stick out
that.
to me. I was wondering, like, I mean,
Theo?
you guys, you could have said like Theodore or something,
Theodore.
or
Anything.
Theosil.
I'm a fan of Theodore. But then we had Theodore, no, Theoden, like the king and stuff, and Twin Towers. But then didn't just drop the Theo completely, like go with
Galadriel. Just anyway.
Galadriel, anything, yeah.
Do you enjoy those characters?
No. Every time the story switches onto that focus, like I like my brain has to focus twice as hard because we're reviewing the series, so I should stay in the loop. But if I was just binge watching, I would totally skip it. I would probably skip it because I didn't care. Having said that, there was some of the best CGI sequences in the last episode, with Arondir in a slow-mo and shooting at orcs and stuff. Do you remember that?
Oh, vaguely.
Yeah.
Sorry, again, I just
I
believe you. I believe
it. It's the only reason why I'm bringing this up, because I reviewed it. Like, I mentioned it because I thought that was a good CGI, but that's all I had to say about what's happening there. Like to the point I started fantasizing that the tower is Barad-dûr. That's the Tower of the Sauron. Like, I thought that was the place that just then turns into. I desperately want this place to be relevant, and I want this to be kind of a Balrog situation when there's this huge revelation. Oh, it's like that's how the Mithras came to life, which I found out later on it's not how it's not true. It's sort of written for the purpose of the series, but I desperately seek for the series to be good or interesting or relevant, like, or somewhat connected. Yeah, it's that kind of thing.
Arondir, again, it's just like, I wish the elves had the long hair, and Arondir, like, why does he have like a crew cut? Like, it's just because his personality and Theo's and the mother, like, there's nothing there, and it's like, at least like if he looked cool, I could enjoy watching. I mean, he does look cool, but like, give him hair, like
give him hair,
give him long cool hair.
I keep talking about like how elves have this whole, I know what you mean, like it's the long hair, but they're also the way they carry themselves, and it's all very slow, very full of grace. They try to make them modern without actually needing them to be. Like, they try to revolutionize something that should not have been revolutionized, because it worked, it was perfect as it already was. Speaking of Theo's mom, I think his name is Brianna.
Yeah, that's what it is. Or Brewin or something. Wait.
Bruin. Yeah, something
Bruin,
like that.
Yeah.
When she gives this whole speech to people in the tower, like how they should stay and fight, I'm like, she's like a common, like, just a lady of the fields, and she's giving like battle speeches that only Aragorn was able to do in a past. Yeah. Moments like this makes me really switch off, like, completely in those sequences, because she's like, it's just not adding up.
Okay, so in the last episode, Galadriel went in to like help the soldiers who were training in combat, and she jumps in. She's like, "Oh, you guys are doing a terrible job. Let me show you how it's done." Yeah. But I was very underwhelmed with the actual how, because like they use that cutting on action to hide that there really was no fight, basically. And I don't know if that's that maybe the actress isn't good, like maybe she did training and she's not good with fencing, or they didn't want to put money into, you know what I mean?
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I read some review of someone saying how brilliant that whole fight sequence was. And I just remember watching it and feeling exact same way as you. It's like, this is massively underwhelming. I see what they're trying to do. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I see the intention behind it, but what happened?
Right.
Can we have a fight? I mean, the only explanation or like sort of defense I see for the whole series, which I know I'm trying to do, and I know it probably doesn't even deserve it, but maybe they're building up or saving up all that money into those great battle sequences we're going to have in the future.
It's concerning if that was the level of skill she had with unskilled people. You know what I mean? It's like...
And someone
she's-
actually scratched her.
Right. Like,
And that's
I don't think-
Galadriel.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna make it if that's the one who's training them.
One of my favorite sequences was that fight between Sauron and her and Gandalf. I mean, they came to the rescue to Gandalf, like her, Radagast and Saruman. That was one of my most favorite sequences because we get to see how powerful Galadriel is. So from that to this, it's like, I don't know, she's gonna do some majoring growing up. And but yeah, interestingly enough, that's another thing. Like, if you look at Lord of the Rings, we didn't have a big sequence until the twin Dark Towers. What's the Dark Towers? Twin Towers. The Dark Towers. It's a wrong franchise. The Twin Towers. Like, that was the first, you know, the Battle of the Helm's Deep. Like, that was the first real fight. And obviously, they have all the time in the world. If you think about it, Game of Thrones was kind of the same. We had episodes where there was just a lot of talking, no much movement. But speaking of big battles, I'm not sure we're going to expect a lot of those because, as I mentioned this in review, we have 3 ships. 3 ships.
Right. I forgot about that.
3 ships sailing out to Middle-earth from Numenor. Numenor can afford 3 ships. So many people, so much resources, but we have 3 ships.
They already blew the budget. They couldn't afford more ships than that.
They couldn't like, whose budget? Amazon's or Numenor?
Both.
What they did wrong, I think, overall as a series, was to have the Lord of the Rings even to begin with, like in a title, and daring to say that they're based on the Tolkien. They could have get away with anything. I think anything, even, you know, the hairless elves and stuff. They could have gotten away with anything. That was the biggest drawback and the biggest kind of shot in the foot they could have given themselves.
But they know
It's
they
sad.
wouldn't have made the money. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They wanted the views, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I get it, but you know, it could have created its own niche of like a fan base.
They could have dropped the names, you know. It didn't have to be Galadriel, Elrond. It didn't have to have any of that, and they would have been just fine. If they wanted to make a fantasy series, they would have got it, because there is craving for that, you know. There's actual thirst for a good fantasy series. It's like people are scared to touch original IPs.
And the funny thing is that they don't realize how much better that would do if they just did it, you know?
Yeah.
It just makes no sense.
So, Catriona, thank you so much for speaking to me today. I think we covered a lot. The main takeaway was, it would have been a great series if it just wasn't Lord of the Rings. That is pretty much it. Yeah, are you going to be watching season 2, I wonder?
I don't know at this point. I keep flip-flopping depending on how good the episode is. Like, I mean, you know, I do think episode 5 was better than the last few, so I'm more interested to see where it goes.
Catch us on our weekly shows, like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments whether you agree with us or not. It's fine if you disagree. We're not experts, as we keep highlighting of it. Like, Catriona doesn't even know who Gimli is, like, you know, things like that.
Oh, sorry, the Dark Towers over here. But...
yeah, let us know what you think, and catch you guys at our weekly reviews that I'm going to also link down below. And yeah, thanks for watching, and take care. Thanks.